Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast. It's episode 65, and what a treat we have for you today, because we have another Vincent Price movie, although quite an unorthodox Vincent Price movie. It's not the kind of Vincent Price movie you've come to expect from conversations coming out of my mouth, but it's a Vincent Price movie nonetheless. So you know I'm very excited to talk about it. Joining me this week in our summer of new guests is not a new guest at all. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because we like to say she takes over the feed, and she is my co-host on Morgan Hasn't Seen, and it's Jeannine. Hi, Jeannine.
Hi, Morgan. Very old guest in many ways.
Very old guest. You would only be you would only be a very old guest if you would use the Face app. Is the only way you would be a very old guest.
Yes, but I actually don't look so bad with that.
I mean, it's understandable.
Black don't crack, Morgan. Black don't crack.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable if you put like a picture of me and a picture of you using the same thing. I mean, there's a good 40 years difference between how old I look compared to how old you look. Benefits.
That actually makes me feel pretty good. So yeah.
Good. That's thumbs up from Jeannine there. I hope this movie gets a thumbs up from Jeannine by the end of this episode, because, well, Jeannine, do you want to tell our wonderful listeners of It's a Wonderful Podcast what movie we are talking about starring Vincent Price?
Yes.
For this week, episode 65.
Yes. Today we are talking about Laura from 1944.
Yeah.
Directed by Otto Preminger.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that
was your pick.
It was my pick, and you know why I picked it, don't you?
Vincent Price.
Yes, I mean it's a really easy answer. This is a movie that I had heard about as simply being an earlier Vincent Price movie before he got into all the horror stuff. He just a regular actor like everyone else. And boy, does it show in this movie that he's just a regular actor like everyone else.
It was very odd seeing him be so normal.
But let's start off. So yes, Laura, 1944, directed by Otto Preminger. And I like Otto Preminger as a director. He can direct mysteries very well. He's sort of... mystery dramas is kind of really what he does well. I know Anatomy of a Murder is a really great Otto Preminger film. This one, for me, as a mystery, felt kind of unusual compared to a lot of other mystery films. And I think you agree on this front.
I do agree. It had a very interesting through line that you don't normally see in movies like this. Usually, they do set up red herrings and different suspects and who done it, and you got all of that. But there was one constant motive for everybody. Everyone had the same motive.
Yeah.
And usually everyone has a different motive. So there was a very strong theme that was kind of a through in the whole film, which I kind of appreciated. Yeah,
and so the main story, if you want to call it story, of the movie is Laura, the title character, has been murdered, and a detective comes in to investigate her murder, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all you need to know. We don't kind of want to go into necessarily fully spoilery territory, because sometimes I do like to go into spoilery territory, but mainly that's for movies that are very popular and that kind of everybody knows about. But I feel like this one kind of benefits from not knowing certain things that happen.
Yeah, there are some twisties in there, and yeah, I mean, even though it is an older film, I feel like it's nice to have that surprise, especially in an older film where people maybe might be weary of checking it out. I
Yeah.
think it's worth, having that surprise kind of stay a surprise for now.
And, like you said, for being 1944, for being a mystery from the 40s, people get the impression of something like the Maltese Falcon, which this movie is not. The Maltese Falcon is kind of this really strongly acted kind of... It's that's more of a conventional mystery, even though it's all surrounding that one thing. This one is unusual in Laura, this mystery. The detective in this is also kind of very aware of what's going on, which is kind of unusual for mystery films, where it always seems like the detective is really trying to find everything out as the movie goes. A lot of the time it seems like the detective knows more than the audience, which is also kind of unusual for a mystery film, I feel like. I always prefer it when we, the audience, know everything and we're just watching the characters try and figure everything out. I feel like that's
Or you're
always...
yelling, you're yelling at the screen like, "He's the one, he did it! Oh my gosh!"
But it does provoke that reaction. But even if you don't,
Yeah.
even if you don't watch movies, and shout at the screen all the time, I always kind of find it more entertaining, just to see where, if you as an audience act as this sort of omniscient, all-knowing being that are just watching
So
all these characters. You're sat there
do you
on...
prefer that?
I prefer that. You're sat, I'm sat there. Maybe this is just some sort of weird psychological complex I have. I'm just sat there on Mount Olympus playing Zeus and just watching all the... I mean, I have no input, but I'm there watching all the characters and just saying, "Ooh, I didn't think they'd do that," or "Yeah, that's what I, thought they might do."
So
Oh, there's
basically,
something that's a surprise.
you're a power hungry know-it-all. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, because I don't want to have any power. I just want to know it all.
Okay.
There's a
So
difference.
you're a know-it-all. That part is true.
That I can admit to. It's not a very good trait.
So you prefer that to like discovering things with the characters.
I do, because I just find it more entertaining. It's more tense. I always feel like mystery films should be tense, and
Yeah.
I don't think Laura was very tense, to be honest with you. I also feel like if you know more than the characters, you can get invested in the characters a little bit more, because you want them to succeed.
Figure it out.
You want them to
Yeah.
figure it out. Which, if they don't in a certain movie, then you're there thinking, you kind of leave that movie not obviously disappointed, but almost shocked. Or of course, if they do figure it out, which is kind of more conventional, then it makes for a very satisfying ending to a mystery movie. Something that you've known all along, but you've just watched these characters try and figure it out. But Laura isn't like that. You kind of find stuff out as as the audience.
With the characters.
It's almost not with the characters, though. It's almost as though the detective is played by Dana Andrews, who we also did a movie of his recently, Night of the Demon, in Monster Movie May, which stars Dana Andrews. He almost knows more than you do. he almost knows more than he lets on in this movie.
He does.
He comes in with he doesn't come in with questions like what happened. He knows everything about the people he's questioning.
And it almost seems like he sets up scenarios for them to kind of incriminate themselves,
Yeah.
to get more information, to make himself more sure. There's even a whole scene where he's like, I did this certain thing because I was 99% sure of this, but I needed that extra 1%. So this is why I did this.
That, I feel, is very much what his character in this is. And, like I said, for me, that's kind of unusual compared to the mystery films that from this time that I often watch. So it's kind of nice and refreshing, but it took me a little while to get my head completely in that space.
But I appreciated it. Like, if you read the synopsis, it says that it's like this detective, he falls in love with the murder victim.
Yeah.
So, like, just reading that for me makes me think, okay, he's kind of maybe going to be he's maybe good at his job, but being clouded in his judgment, falling in love with this murder victim, he's not going to be very good at his job anymore. He's going to be conflicted. He's not going to be doing things correctly. But yet he's still very good at his job. He's still kind of smartly questioning people and figuring things out and putting things together and kind of getting people to tell him things without him being direct about it. Like, he's still very good at his job, even though, like, they're kind of leading you to believe that he might be clouded in some way. But he's still very,
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciated that.
I mean, going into this movie, reading that, when it says he falls in love with the murder victim, it comes across very much as he falls in love with the image that is created of the murder victim through his questioning, and to a point that is the case.
Yeah.
Again, don't want to get into too spoilery. But it's really interesting, the sort of first half of this movie, the way it's told and the way it's structured, is that it's done in that almost sort of flashback. But it's less of a flashback and kind of more of a recreation from
of perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a recreation of perspective from what the detective's going about.
Questioning,
He speaks to Clifton Webb, who plays what's his name, the gossip columnist, Lydecker, Mr. Lydecker.
Yeah.
I actually think he's the best character in the whole movie. I actually think he steals the movie.
I agree with that.
Clifton Webb. I think he gives the best performance. And let's not forget, this is a movie with Vincent Price in, so for me to say something like that, and I thought he was really good in this movie.
Well, I feel like, was it intentional, do you think, to make everyone slightly, like, unlikable? Except Laura? When you see her in these flashbacks?
Probably.
Because I feel like the theme that I was kind of getting at was, I feel like the through theme is, of everyone's possible motive, is love.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Which is
and
weird.
So in these flashbacks and recreations, you get to see, like, the kind of person Laura was and why so many people loved her.
Yeah.
So aside from her having all these great redeeming qualities to have all these people love her so much, everyone else is kind of a terrible person.
It comes across as like you said, the motive of love comes across as it's almost like, if I can't have you, nobody can.
Yeah.
It's almost like that. It's kind of the same situation, weirdly, with like John Lennon's assassination.
Yeah.
Which was very much a case of
Very obsessive and
I mean, not obviously. I mean, kind of a little bit to that extreme, but obviously that was very much a case of, I want you all to myself. If I can't have you, nobody can.
Have you? Nobody can have you. Yeah.
Which is the case also with this movie. It's kind of a damaging form of love, not one that I particularly understand. But anyway, I'm not there to understand what the characters are doing. I'm not Mr. Lydecker, and I'm not whatever Vincent Price's character's called, Shelby. I think he's called Shelby. What a great name. That's the most sort of nice, like, wholesome name that any Vincent Price character has ever had. Shelby. He's such an unusual character for Price to play. And of course this is earlier in Price's career. This is before he was Vincent Price.
He's kind of unrecognizable. It's very odd.
I'm
expecting him to like make funny faces and do his like
he's not
iconic voice, and he's not that guy yet, and it's just very weird.
He's not that guy yet. He's got a little bit of the
glimmers. Yeah.
But it also seems like he's speaking with more of a southern twang, and he's from St. Louis, so maybe this is. I can
hear that a little bit.
Maybe this is a little bit. I don't know. I don't know his entire life in so much detail as to know whether this was his voice in 1944, and because I believe he came and lived in England and sort of picked up a little bit of, which is why his voice is so strange but also unique, because it's a mix of a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's still got the same sort of looming, lumbering presence, because he's still 6'4" or however tall he is. And he still kind of has that little charm in his eye that he never lost. But it's just a much more subtle, subdued performance than I am used to seeing. I would watch like Tales of Terror, where Price is making weird faces in his little segment from The Cask of Amontillado, when he's doing all those weird faces and going, ooh,
bugging out his eyes, and
or in the Haunted Palace, when he's playing, two generations of the same character. One of them's evil, one of them's mad, and he just kind of switches between the two of them, and it's very theatrical, and this is not a theatrical movie.
Like, he is known for being so emotive in this movie. He's very kind of straightforward, but I think like you get glimmers of it, like when they do that kind of flashback of him meeting Laura, and their whole kind of courtship developing. He's very kind of silly with her. He is, and kind of flirty, and I'm like, okay, I'm seeing it.
And the sort of interesting thing about it is that you get, obviously, each character's perspective of their relationship with Laura, as told through these little flashback things in the sort of first half of the movie. And the one thing I found really quite funny, and it wasn't supposed to be funny, was Mr. Lydecker's telling the detective the story, and he seems really pleased with himself at the fact that, I'm paraphrasing, but it's basically, I went to get her a new haircut. I got her some new clothes. I made her wear those new clothes, wear the new haircut, and then I took her home and read her my own articles.
And those were the kinds of fun things that we enjoyed doing together. Like, really, dude? Like
no.
You treat me like a doll, and then
It's like
you want to say that is stuff that we enjoyed to do together.
It's Vertigo all over. It's the second half of Vertigo all over again, just a little less creepy.
Yeah.
Well, look what happens in the second half of Vertigo. Jimmy Stewart goes getting Kim Novak the haircut he wants her to have, the clothes he wants her to have. She has no control over her own.
Sigh.
And look, Vertigo is a wonderful movie. We did it for the very first episode of this show.
I remember that.
And I'm sure it's a very amateurish discussion, as pretty much all of them are. But still, I like the movie.
We do our best here at It's a Wonderful Podcast.
We certainly try to, Jeannine. We certainly try to. But no, that was funny. And the thing that I do actually like about Mr. Lydecker, even though he is very, sort of self-centered, is that he is kind of quietly witty. Like
like his ways of trying to get a rise out of people with his little snarky little remarks, just kind of under his breath, and like he knows how to push people's buttons, and he'll do it every time he gets the chance.
Yeah.
And then just the way he tries to manipulate Laura in these, moments that you kind of see how they met, and like it's just he's not very likable, but he's playing his part very well.
He is. I do find that aspect of him quite likable. He reminds me of a Billy Wilder character. Although of course not as kind of fast paced, and because this movie isn't a fast paced whip smart movie, but what Mr. Lydecker brings to it, and what Clifton Webb brings to it in his performance there, is a very is a kind of slower wit and stuff that is really entertaining to watch.
I mean, when you first meet him, he's in a bathtub in his lavish apartment, like writing.
Yeah.
And he makes the detective get him a towel.
Yeah.
Like,
he's a gossip
the character
columnist
setup. Yeah.
in the 40s. This is what these people were like.
And even that whole introduction where he kind of flashes back to how he met Laura, and he's like a total asshole to her. And her kind of like reaction to that was what intrigued him and made him want to like find her and talk to her.
Yeah.
Like she was trying to talk to you and show you an advertisement to put in your column, and you were just like, oh, he was just terrible. That whole scene of him just telling her, I don't care. Like, leave me alone. Like, ugh. Yeah.
He's just eating his lunch, and I'm eating my lunch.
Yeah.
Go away.
You know what's important right now? Me eating my lunch. Like,
well, himself, truly, the only important person in Mr. Lydecker's life is himself.
Yes.
And that's why, certain things happen in this movie. With his character, it's very clear to see where that character is at the end of this movie. It makes total sense for that character to be like that. I kind of almost want to spoil the movie.
I know I do too, because it's like some very interesting things happen.
I mean,
and like
we might
even the final moments like have him, like you hear his voice saying certain things, and it kind of brings the whole thing together, which I really loved.
I don't like being too general with what we're saying. To hell with it, we're going to spoil the movie.
Okay, spoilers for a movie that came out in 1944.
I know, but I always sometimes I do like to try and be careful with it. But yes.
Well, then Jeannine, stop it right here and go watch the movie and then come back.
Sure, do that. But yeah, Jeannine, go with what you were saying, using actual evidence.
Yeah, so like the theme of love, like, these movies, someone has like their motive is they wanted somebody's money, or they wanted to inherit something, or just straight up revenge. Like everybody's motive was love because they loved Laura, or they loved somebody who was in love with Laura, or something else. And so basically, it is revealed who the killer is, which is Lydecker.
Yeah.
And
But I mean, he isn't the killer of Laura in the sense of what we were
no.
led to believe at the start of the movie.
So that's the whole twist, is like Laura, she didn't not in fact get killed. It was somebody else. And Lydecker went there to kill Laura, but he killed somebody else thinking it was Laura because of the whole, if I can't have her, nobody else can, because she was about to get married to Shelby.
Yes.
So it is revealed that she's alive. The detective gets involved, and he's trying to figure out who killed the girl who was mistakenly seen as Laura. And Lydecker comes back to finish the job, and Laura's listening to his radio show where he's talking about love, and he's like saying a great line about how love is like the strongest motivating factor for people in all of history.
Yeah.
And as she's like hearing this, he's walking in telling her like he's the half of his, whole, and like, yeah, it's like very poetic.
I mean, it's very poetic, but then he gets violent.
Yeah.
and that's not good. But yeah, I really like the fact that the twist happens like right smack bang in the middle of the movie.
But did you see that coming?
No.
Did it surprise you?
Yeah, it did, because I was fully prepared for this movie to be told in these flashback ways, and
Yeah.
it's Jean Tierney who plays Laura. So I was fully prepared for the detective, like we know the detective falls in love with Laura.
The murder.
Yeah. That's what we said.
The murder victim, air
exactly.
quotes.
That's what we said at the beginning in the synopsis. The detective falls in love with the woman whose murder he is investigating.
He's investigating.
Which is the case only up until the halfway point.
Yeah.
Where it's not her anymore, because she's obviously revealed to be alive, and then she gets involved with it. Obviously, he then does really fall in love with her as well, because apparently nobody can keep their hands off Laura.
But
She's
she
just
is like gorgeous, like
so irresistible to everybody.
People in old movies like have this attractive quality that just really doesn't exist anymore. Like, I don't, like, of course there's attractive actors and actresses, but they just, I don't know, like,
you know what it is?
I can't explain it.
You know what it is? It's the myth of them.
They are attractive in a different way than movie stars are today.
It's the myth of an old Hollywood actor, because today we know everything about an actor's personal life, everything about what they're doing every day. Whereas the only time you would see, Marilyn Monroe, the only time you would see Audrey Hepburn, or Jean Tierney, or, Jane Mansfield, or whoever it may be, is when they wanted you to see them.
In a movie.
In a whether
As a
it's
character.
in a movie or in some sort of exclusive interview, where you then create this myth of this perfect human being who, because that's what it is. It's that's why they seem more attractive, because they are presented as these desirable people. They are presented.
There's some air of mystery.
Because there's an air of mystery.
They just have this glow and like this way of this essence. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. That's something I love about old movies. Like you just look at the people and you're just like, oh my gosh, they're just so gorgeous. Like,
I mean, they are truly, but I also think like it is kind of a thing. It is kind of a thing, and I apologize if I'm muddling my words again. Today, it seems, in today's Hollywood, it seems like anybody can be an actor. Given enough talent and, will and drive and everything like that, of course, it still takes a lot. But, there's that much going on. Anybody can do that. You can see anybody on the big screen. I feel like that is, conveyed to the public as something that can happen.
Yeah.
Back decades and decades ago when,
that was not
in
the
this
case.
we're talking, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
These were elite people.
Yeah.
Who the public saw as elite people. Nobody sees actors as elite people. They just see them as famous actors who are rich. Nobody sees them as better than them.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case, that wasn't the case, that wasn't the case decades and decades ago.
So that maybe adds to the glamour aspect of them.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Sorry if I get muddled.
No, that's okay.
I feel like I'm flubbing my words all the damn time. And it's a nightmare. Let's get back on to the movie. Anything else that you wanted to bring up in particular about Laura?
I liked the setup of the characters. I thought all of that was really well done. Like I said, you see, what's his name?
Shelby.
No.
Lydecker.
You see him in the start, like, totally being a snobby ass, and then it goes into his whole flashback with Laura, and you get a very good look at his character. You get a very good look at Laura, who this person is the detective, how he kind of reacts to that, and how he kind of reacts to everything everyone's doing. You see him kind of like fidgeting with his little baseball game, and like all the character setup, all these little hints and things that you kind of notice about the characters. It gives you enough in such a short amount of time that you already kind of have lived with them a little bit, so you can kind of be with the detective and kind of look at them in different ways and see their motivations and see, what he's kind of piecing it together. You're kind of piecing it together as well. You may not know as much as he knows in that moment, but you can piece things together yourself just based off of the little clues they give you about each character, and I really like the setup.
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of prefer the first half of this movie to the second. Once the twist happens, it's a very good twist. The fact that it's revealed that Laura's still alive, and we're actually investigating the murder of
what really happened.
Is it Diane Redfern? I think is the other.
Yeah, a model that Laura had hired that was in love with her fiance Shelby, and Shelby was, I guess, trying to talk out of being in love with him.
Literally everybody has a relationship with everybody else in this movie. It is not, I feel like once the twist happens, it is not the easiest movie to follow.
No.
I feel like maybe that's done intentionally. Maybe that is a case of, a mystery film being confusing because the mystery itself is confusing and the audience should feel confusing, along with the characters. The audience should feel confused.
Like they want to ease you into the first half of it with it being very coherent and you're getting what's happening.
Yeah.
And then once the twist happens, your mind is supposed to kind of get twisted along with it, I guess. Maybe?
And I like that. I like that idea. Like I said, I like it as an idea. I don't enjoy
know
watching
that the
that.
execution was that well done. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I also don't enjoy watching mysteries like that. Like I said before, I like watching a mystery get figured out by the characters, not by me. I
Yeah.
If I wanted a mystery to be figured out by me, I'd become a detective. That's not what I'm watching these movies to do. And to be honest, mysteries aren't my favourite genre anyway. Luckily, this one has its little elements of noir in there. It's got its romance in there for me to
Well,
really
that's like
kind
the
of enjoy
running
it.
thing is everybody in love with everybody. I mean, they say that like the detective in his questioning, like the first like three people he questions within like the first 10 minutes of the movie, he like asks, "Well, were you in love with Laura? Were you in love with Shelby? Were you in love with this
Yeah,
person?" Like, yeah, so that already kind of sets up that whole aspect, I think. So,
yeah, but I mean, if look, we've done two movies from 1944 in consecutive weeks. Last week, me and James White looked at Double Indemnity. Now, Double Indemnity has elements of mystery, romance, and film noir to it. But I really love Double Indemnity. I enjoy Laura. I just think that's because the mystery in Double Indemnity is something that you are watching a character figure out. You are watching Edward G. Robinson in that movie figure out that Fred McMurray and Barbara Stanwyck are working together and have killed her husband. That's the mystery elements of that. That's the detective elements of that. Even though he's an insurance, he works at an insurance company. He's still acting as the detective of that story. And maybe this is just complete personal preference with me. Not wanting to have to figure out, and maybe that's even like a laziness from me in terms of watching a
yeah.
movie.
You don't want to have to work when you go to a movie.
But I don't
But I
mind. I
mean,
don't mind
do you feel
thinking.
like
Sorry,
well,
go ahead.
do you feel like you're not as rewarded by like a twist or a
No,
surprise if
never
you
have
already
been.
kind of know what's going to happen before
Oh,
the characters?
sorry, I misspoke. I cut you off. I'm being terrible today.
No, that's okay.
No, I don't really care for twists so much. It
But
not as a rule.
but if there is a twist, do
If
you
there is
think
a
it's not
twist,
as rewarding? Do you think it's not as rewarding as if the story was going in a way where you were figuring it out with the characters? Do you think that's a more rewarding reveal of a twist as opposed to you're the one who kind of knows everything and you're waiting for the characters to catch up and then the twist happens and they figure it out? Do you think that's less rewarding than you kind of figuring it out with the characters and then the big twist happens?
I feel that is less rewarding to an audience if that
Yeah.
happens for sure. To me personally, again, this kind of goes into just how I watch movies, and I story isn't the most important thing in a movie for me. Never has been.
The visuals is always a
The
big thing for
visuals
you.
and the visuals and the emotions they create are the most important things in a movie to me. It's kind of why I like more theatrical movies or more like the movies I like thinking about. I know it sounds ridiculously pretentious, but like 2001, A Space Odyssey. I'd much rather think about the stuff that movie's trying to tell me than think about who killed who in. To use a quote from Vertigo, I'd rather do that than think about who killed who on the Embarcadero in April 1965 or whatever the quote is. It just came into my head because we've been talking about Vertigo a little bit.
So very pretentious, Morgan.
I might be. I might be. I don't mean to be, and I apologise to everybody that truly now thinks I am. But
No,
that's
no.
just the way. That's just the way I I have always watched movies. That's just the way my brain works. And that is, I think, the way my brain will always work. I have never been able to predict a movie. I know some people, some friends of mine are very, very good at predicting the end of the movie after watching it for 10 minutes. And I have no idea how. Because I'm not like that. I'm not made like that.
So that's why you have this need to like know before the characters.
It's not a need, because I can still enjoy a movie. Because I enjoyed this movie. It's just complete personal preference. I feel like I get more.
You would prefer.
I feel like
know.
no. It's a case of getting stuff out of the movie, because movies are emotional experiences, and I feel like I get a better emotional experience if I'm watching the characters go through an emotional journey that I already know not the beats to, but if I'm watching the characters go through an emotional journey, not a story. I don't know. This is making less and less sense as much as I talk about it. I'm trying to, again, figure out what I'm trying to say.
What you're trying to say.
And explain it in a way that actually makes sense. Because I know it makes sense in my head, and it makes sense in nobody else's head.
I get what you're trying to say.
I hope you get what I'm trying to say. It's not a need to know what's going on all the time. It's not a need of anything.
Well, I just meant, like, is it a need in the way that, like, you personally can't figure it out on your own? So you, like, would prefer to have that inside knowledge, because then it would make it more enjoyable for you, because then you wouldn't be spending all your time trying to figure things out. You could just sit back and wait for them to figure it out. That's more enjoyable for you.
Yes, that would be the case.
Than struggling along with the characters to figure it out.
That would be the case if I ever tried figuring it out at all, which I don't.
Okay.
I don't allow myself to do, which is why movies, it's why mystery movies are kind of hit and miss for me.
Okay.
Which, movies like this I can enjoy because of, the technical aspects of it. Like I said, I really like the way this movie is structured. In with those flashbacks at the beginning, then you get the twist, then it turns into a conventional sort of whodunit. And it ends really nicely, and it, makes you think about all these characters' versions of love and how kind of damaging they are. That's interesting to me. That's what I like to think about. Like I said, I don't like to think about who killed who. I don't care about that. Anybody can kill anybody. That's not going to influence my enjoyment of a movie. I will just take it as fact. But it's how you tell
about it.
It's
how you
go
tell
about
that story.
it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing. My favorite thing about, think of what's a big twist ending in movie history.
The Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense, sure. My favourite thing about The Sixth Sense isn't the fact that Bruce Willis is a ghost. And that's some people's favourite...
He's a ghost?
But that's some people's favourite thing about The Sixth Sense, right? The story of, oh my God, he was dead the whole time. I don't care he was dead the whole time. It's the story, it's the fact... What's more interesting is that, he didn't realise he was dead the whole time. That's what's more interesting. Bruce Willis's character and his struggle. That's what's interesting, not the story. Again, this is the way I personally watch movies. I hope there's people out there. If there is anybody out there, please talk to me. Please talk to me on Twitter. Please tell me.
There's definitely nothing wrong with that. I totally get what you're saying, and I appreciate that.
Go to the podcast on Twitter at It's a Wonderful One. Go to me on Twitter at The Purple Dawn with a 3 instead of the E in there because 3 is the magic number. And tell me that you watch movies like I watch movies for emotions and images, not always for story.
I'm sure there's other
movies,
people out there like that.
movies are moving paintings, not moving books.
Is that an original quote?
That's a quote by me. That's my own.
It's very good. It's very good.
Movies are moving paintings. That's why I like Harry Potter so much, because the world of Harry Potter, because paintings move. No, that. I was just trying to up the silliness right there because I feel like I've been getting way too serious.
Like Vincent Price in this movie.
Like Vincent Price in this movie. It hasn't been my usual. Jeannine, that was genius. It hasn't been my usual performance because, yeah, maybe I was
channeling
frankly
44 Price.
I'm channeling, yeah. Frankly, maybe it was just the fact that Price wasn't behaving like Price. That also is a little bit of a negative that I have about this movie. But it can't possibly be a negative because it's still Vincent Price, Jeannine. And I will still get a huge smile on my face whenever I see his silly face.
Sigh. Good sigh.
Good sigh. Very good sigh. It's fun. Anyway, I feel like I've talked a lot about nonsense. Is that? I mean, I kind of like. I like this discussion. I just wish I was able to actually make
Slightly
words
more
happen in my
coherent.
brain.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I think the people can follow.
Is that how you? Do you watch movies as like stories first and foremost?
I wouldn't say first and foremost. Like, I do like the story, but I like it being told in an interesting way. Like, I am a huge fan of visual storytelling. Like, something I love in movies is when you maybe don't need words and you can convey so much of the story and the characters with just the visuals. Like, the opening to Batman Returns, I love it because you get the Penguin's whole story without any dialogue, just visuals and music, and you get the gist of everything, and you get so much about this character just from how things look. Yeah. So I like things like that when it can give you the story, but in smart ways, like the introduction of these characters. Each character gave you little nuggets of who they were, and so that informs the story. So I really like things like that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe as well because this is kind of a dialogue-heavy movie. It does have, like we said, it does have those interesting kind of technical and structural elements to it that really do make me enjoy it. Make it a very well-made movie. Like I said, Otto Preminger knows what he's doing in terms of filmmaking. He can, yeah, he's great. He's one of the prime directors of that era, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, definitely a well-made movie.
But it's
really liked the storytelling.
Yeah.
It did kind of, after the twist, like you said, it was kind of discombobulated a little bit, but it wasn't too jarring that you couldn't still appreciate and enjoy things about it.
Yeah. And maybe, maybe I have this slight sour taste towards the second half of the movie because
you enjoyed the first half so much.
Because
the first half was so well done.
Yeah, because I not only enjoyed the first half so much, but also the first half was exactly what I expected.
Okay.
Which
and then once
can be
twist, you were not expecting that, and everything after that was not really expected either.
No, but obviously that doesn't mean it's bad.
No.
At all. And yeah, I mean it's why I like to not have expectations, but when you read a synopsis that says a detective falls in love with the woman he's whose murder he's investigating. That's really interesting to me. The fact that she
Yeah.
ends up being just alive is just kind of, eh,
Okay. Now it's kind of gone into generic
yeah.
murder mystery, whodunit kind of
And like I said,
territory.
I take things as I see them, and that's fine. If the if the second half of the movie had have been as interesting structurally as the first half, then I'd be singing this movie's praises. Because like I said, I don't care that the twist happened, because it just did happen. That's just what the story was. But it was the fact that after that, I feel like the movie just wasn't told as well as it was in the first half of the movie. It wasn't, not that it wasn't made as well, but I just feel like, yeah, it got a little bit, and like we said, maybe that's on purpose. Maybe that is on purpose, and if so, that is a bold choice, and I like that. It's a bold choice, and I like it, and it also means that this movie is slightly less for me than I thought it was.
Yeah, but it's definitely still to be appreciated, I think.
Of course, it's still to be appreciated. People who love story in movies, I think, will adore this one. Because I think it's a really good story. Just happens that story's never been my main focus when watching movies. And this is my weird personal preference. Well, exactly.
So unique.
Some people could call it unique. Other people could call it unusual, weird, or what the hell, you're an illegitimate movie fan, go away, you shill.
Oh yeah, everyone's gonna be saying that.
You know, because I'm a... You can't say I'm a Vincent Price shill anymore, though. Because I'm actually having a few little negative things to say about a movie that he did. He was a member of the supporting casting. But yeah, I mean, that goes back to the idea of why I like Vincent Price so much, is because he's super theatrical and visual in everything, apart from Laura.
None of that. Yeah.
It was strange. A strange movie experience was watching Laura, Jeannine. An unusual mystery movie, for sure. And yeah, I think if mysteries really are your go-to genre, this one, you need to watch it, because it's a really well-made mystery. It's a really well-told story. Just some people's personal preferences on how movies are made doesn't have to influence what you may or may not feel towards the movie. And I feel like I've been saying stuff like that a lot recently. I feel like a few movies have been coming up, whether it's on this show, the main show, or on Morgan Hasn't Seen even, that have been kind of like movies I can understand why people appreciate, but aren't my personal go-to movies, as opposed, and I don't know if you've seen it yet, as opposed to Midsummer, Ginny.
I have not seen Midsummer yet.
Damn it. Because Midsummer is my favourite movie of the year. And you know what people think about Midsummer? Is they hate it, Ginny.
What?
People hate
most people liked it.
Some people vehemently hate Midsummer, Ginny. You know why? You know why?
Why?
Because it's a creepy movie that's very visual and makes you feel.
And doesn't really have the story.
Doesn't have any story. Do you know what the story of Midsummer is? People go to Sweden.
And it's creepy.
And it's creepy. That's the story. That's it. That's what I like.
Yeah, that sounds like you.
People go to Sweden. They spend a 2.5-hour movie there. And it's weird. Yes. Give me all of it. I understand I am a weird movie watcher, everyone.
You are, but you're unique. You're a unique movie watcher, and the world needs more unique movie watchers like you, Morgan.
Well, I appreciate that sentiment a lot, even though sometimes I feel very distant, Jeannine, from a lot of
Well,
people.
that's what the other show is for, Morgan.
I suppose it is. I suppose it is, but it's also, yeah. I guess in terms of actual movies I have seen, it is what the other show is about. I don't think you could possibly teach me to appreciate a story over an emotional visual, though.
I think I can try.
I just think that's
At
just
some
built
point.
in me. I just think that it's built in me, much like my fondness for, I don't know, my fondness for the music of Marvin Gaye is built in me. It's not something that will ever go away and not something that will ever change.
Well, hey guys, if you can find me a very story-driven series, then
What
maybe
are
we
you
can do
trying
that
to do?
on Morgan Hasn't Seen.
What are you trying to do to me?
No, nothing. Just not trying to change your wonderfully unique way of watching movies at all.
Yes, you are.
I'm just trying to open.
You're trying to
open you
change me, Jeannine.
up. Open you up to new things. That's what Morgan Hasn't Seen is about. So go over there and help me open Morgan up to new things, people.
New movies from the 40s, maybe?
Maybe if there's a series of films,
No.
if franchises were a thing in the 40s.
Hey, I mean, you had the monsters.
But you've seen all those movies.
Well,
the whole point
yeah.
of the show is Morgan Hasn't Seen.
It is. It is. That is. The whole point of the other show on this feed. And you get those episodes every Wednesday. And we are right smack bang in the middle of our Fast and Furious series on that show. And I am enjoying those to a point. I enjoy the fourth one so far the best.
See, and you were dreading this, and you're actually enjoying it.
Yeah. Sometimes
And
that
next
can
up is
happen.
5 and 6, and 5 is typically everyone's favorite. So
Should be fun. Should be
Yeah,
fun,
should be.
Jeannine. But this, I feel, even though I've tried to over-explain myself, again, ridiculously, this has been a good discussion. I've liked this discussion today on Laura from 1944, directed by Otto Preminger, starring who plays the detective, Jeannine Schmodown.
some very attractive Hollywood actor man.
Dana Andrews. Dana Andrews.
That guy.
Jean
That
Tierney.
guy.
Vincent Price. Clifton Webb. And the very recognisable woman who plays Vincent Price's other lady friend, who may or may not have also been in another I recognise her face. Can't put a name to it. But she's been in things too. We also never talked about the maid.
Oh yeah, the crazy
this
maid
movie.
and the crazy aunt who's all obnoxiously in love with Shelby.
But basically, all you need to know about those is that, well, guess what? They're in love with each of the characters as well. Because everybody's in love with everybody, Jeannine. And
Yeah.
it's madness.
Which is actually was my favorite thing about this movie, I guess I can say. It was just the theme of love being the motivator for all these potential suspects.
Love being evil is Jannine's favourite thing about the
Yes.
movie.
Well, I actually even wrote down the final quotes of the movie.
Ooh, okay. Well, I think that's probably a good place to finish this show on then. So,
Yes.
I tell you what we're going to do. If you wrote down the final quotes of the movie, we'll do all the housekeeping stuff now, all the plugs and all that now. And you can end the episode by reading
Really?
out your nice quote that you've got written down.
Okay.
So, thank you guys for listening to another episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast. Episode 65. We're in our mid-60s, Jeannine. It's madness. We're going to start looking like the damn Face app.
Good on you, buddy. Yeah.
Soon. Talking about Laura, 1944. It's been another good episode. I enjoy. Every Friday, a new episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast goes up. You can find the feed, which also houses Morgan Hasn't Seen. You can find the feed on Apple Podcasts, where you can leave your 5-star rating reviews, and we will read them out if you do leave one, with a huge loving thank you, because as much as this movie might want you to hate love, I still enjoy it, and I still like loving those who appreciate this show. Do you not like doing that, Jeannine?
I do.
Good. Then we're on the same page, which is perfect. You can also find the show on Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher, Castbox, Google Podcasts, and various other places. And yeah, download, share, tell your buddies if they like older movies as well. Even if they don't like older movies, just say, hey, just go and listen to this. I don't care if you like it. Do it. Do it. Help. It's nice. It's nice to help. You can find me on Twitter at the Purple Don with a 3 instead of the E in the, because Jeannine.
3 is the magic number.
Or on Instagram at just the Purple Don. Find the show on Twitter at It's a Wonderful One to get all the updates on this show, the main show, and on Morgan Hasn't Seen. And use the hashtag It's a Wonderful One. Talk to me. Tell me that I'm not alone in my preferences when it comes to movie watching. I need other people, please. Jeannine, what have you got going on? Where can people find you at?
You can find me at Jeannine Dubbing on Twitter and Instagram. You can find my weekly column, Machine Mondays, on triviasd.com, where I talk about Schmodown related topics. You can check out my Patreon at Jeannine LC. I just celebrated a year on Patreon, so hey, find me there on patreon.com. I have a tea shop on TeePublic where you can get an It's a Wonderful Podcast shirt or a Morgan Hasn't Seen shirt.
Yeah.
G9 Design on teepublic.com. And you can check me out on the Movie Trivia Schmodown on the Movie Trivia Schmodown YouTube channel.
Yay for Jeannine the Machine.
Yeah.
Who is the best character in all of the Schmodown ever.
Oh, well, thank you. Oh.
I bet some people truly believe that.
Nobody truly believes that.
You do.
No.
You're the best. Yeah.
Nah.
Yay, the machine.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
There you go, everyone. Thank you again for listening to this episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast. Well, I mean, when Nolan was on, I used to always leave it to Nolan to see us out, as it were. I guess it's something similar this week, but I'm just gonna leave it to you. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna say bye, guys, and thank you, and I will see you next week. Jeannine, go ahead.
So I'll just set the scene as Lydecker comes in to kill his true love, Laura. She hears his voice on the radio say, "Love is eternal. It's been the strongest motivation for human action throughout centuries."